Hi everyone, this is Les from Paint with Les. I'm here hanging out with Just.Hek, just another podcast, and I'm very excited to have a conversation with y'all today.
That was awesome.
Thank
Yes,
you.
and I'm glad you didn't call me Raphael.
I know. Well, why is your name Raphael on your page? On the thing, it says Raphael. So I thought that was your name.
So good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Just.Hek, and this is another episode of Just Another Podcast. This is episode 5, and tonight I feel is a great treat for you guys because I'm interviewing someone from a previous hometown of mine, the BX. It's Paint with Les. This is Leslie Mejia of the Bronx, of the South Bronx, right? Right?
Yes, sir.
And I appreciate you, being a part of the show tonight. I met Les at the Bronx Brewery over the summertime, and you were hosting. You have like a paint project that goes on there where people can kind of you have your little drink or whatever and you sit there and you paint and stuff like that. And I thought, wow, that was amazing. I kind of thought, man, this would be someone awesome to interview and to learn about her story and how this all came about. And you're an LMSW, which is amazing.
Thank
So
you.
shout out to that. We definitely, it's all about empowering, our young brothers and sisters. And that's a super power move. So that's awesome.
Thank you. Appreciate
So
that.
let's jump right into this. So Leslie, Paint with Les. Who are you? Like, what's your story?
Boy. Oh boy, I have such a hard time answering questions like that. Like, tell me about yourself. I'm Leslie Mejia. I'm from the Bronx, New York. I am, the daughter of Dominican immigrants, born and raised in the Bronx. I am also an artist, a social worker, an advisor. I work in college spaces. So, I kind of have a lot of hats. I wear many hats. Like.
Awesome. No, that's dope. That's dope. So wow, I didn't know you were Dominican. I mean, that was something growing up. That was something, I always thought growing up Dominicans were like brown like me, and then come to find out that Dominicans can be actually lighter, but that's a whole other story. But no, that's dope. Sure. That's dope. Awesome. So if you would please can we get into your story of like growing up in the Bronx and you were born here?
Yeah, I was born in the Bronx, South Bronx, Lincoln Hospital. I know there's a lot. People got to say a lot about Lincoln Hospital, but I was born right down the block.
Oh man, yeah. Nah, man, that's dope. So you were born here. Your parents emigrated here, and so what was growing up in the Bronx like for you?
I actually have a very interesting upbringing in the Bronx, New York, because I came up, I was actually born in the 90s. So I came up right after that era where everyone says the Bronx was burning. I don't know if you heard that saying before.
Yeah.
So, fun fact, and I actually am learning more about this throughout my, adulthood. But I actually grew up as a squatter in the Bronx. So my father was part of this group of folks that pretty much were going in and going into those like abandoned buildings or like buildings that were, previously closed off and fixing them up to live in them.
Wow.
And these were all like, these were all like New York City, just abandoned buildings. And there was this group of folks, basically it was called Inner City Press. And this guy, he said, let's make it happen. Let's bring, housing to people. And pretty much we lived there. We lived in these buildings that we fixed up. No one ever really, I never knew the concept of paying rent because no one ever really paid rent. We had really high electricity bills, but we also had like, it was almost like we lived in Dominican Republic in the sense like we had like no hot water. So we used to have like our own hot water tanks in each of our apartments. Wow. We used to go get like gas tanks to cook our food, to connect to the stove. Yeah, so it was like, and we were all like very community oriented because everybody in our building was all Dominican immigrants that literally just came and were, living and navigating New York City together. So that was really cool. It was a really good experience for me because it really showed me a lot about resilience and, being able to truly like make something happen with whatever you have, and, I learned that from a very, very young age. So that's definitely something that stuck with me throughout my life. And, that was my first iteration of what, resilience looked like. And then from there, I was able to, navigate going to school in the Bronx. I went to all public schools in the Bronx. I went to a very, very small high school called South Bronx Preparatory. Okay. And I was the first 6th grade class in that school, and I went all the way from 6th grade to 12th grade. So I was the first graduating class of that school. Wow. So, I like I said, it's very unique and niche in sense because not everyone has that experience in the Bronx. So I really love my community because I feel like everyone always has something to say about the Bronx, but I never really experienced that negativity in the sense that I always thought what we experienced was just us being in our natural state. I didn't know anything but the Bronx until I went to college, upstate New York, and then I was like, oh, like this is different. This is so different. So different. But yeah, just trying to figure it out, living the dream.
Oh man, that's dope. That's dope. I mean, honestly, I'm a little bit older than you. Not by much. A little bit older. But
I wouldn't be able to tell.
Needless to say, I was young when the Bronx kind of just finished burning. This is like in the 80s, and then I just remember going to visit family in the Bronx, and it was like a whole different world. Like, guys with long hair, ponytails, and it was just like, and it was wild, but it was intriguing. It was fun. It was different, like you said, and it was very communal. Later on in my life, I moved to the Bronx. I moved to West Farms, which is right near Parkchester, which is literally, I mean, it was like the edge of it. I literally lived right up the block from Parkchester, like on Archer and Leland and all that stuff. Yeah. And it was a definite a different world from where I came from previously. But it taught me a lot about my Latin heritage a little bit, because I'm Dominican as well, but I'm mixed.
I hear you.
Yeah, my father is Dominican and my mother is Puerto Rican and Black. So, but I grew up with my mother's family primarily. And so, moving to the Bronx, it was like, Spanish house party and the Spanish baby shower, which I find out doesn't end. The Dominican baby shower does not end.
Yeah, you be there like 6 a.m. if you had to.
You gotta send an SOS, like, please come get me, because they keep bringing out all you gonna do it, and where they keep getting all this beer from. It has to stop somehow. Like,
boy.
Like, by the time the baby shower is done, the baby is like in school, like it's
Yeah.
registered in school. So it's crazy.
Not the kid in school.
Yeah,
Wow.
so yeah, it's a definite celebration. But it was dope. I love the Bronx holds a dear place in my heart because I lived there for about 7 years. Um, and yeah, I mean it was a dope place. I mean, it definitely had its interesting portions of it.
Mm-hmm.
The segregation, I never really
Mm-hmm.
got. Because everything is so close together, but it's like different worlds,
Yeah,
right? You know,
I
like
agree.
it's so they're so close together, but like the Grand Concourse and then Jerome Ave is like a whole
Yeah,
different world, and they're literally like 3 blocks away,
3
like down
blocks
the
away
hill,
from each other.
or like
Yes,
the South
exactly.
Bronx, you know, and then you had like uh St. Anne's, or you know, like
Mm-hmm.
or just this is different parts of the Bronx, Longwood, and then you go to Prospect. They
Mm-hmm.
connect, but they're different. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Like
yeah,
people are different, and so
yeah.
that's what I appreciated about my time in the Bronx because it was always an adventure. It was always,
Mm-hmm.
it was
I
always an
hear that.
adventure.
I
You
hear
know.
that.
Um. So you grew up in the Bronx. Your dad would help fix up apartments
Mm-hmm.
that basically were abandoned by
Yeah.
the previous owners.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so he basically did them a favor
Mm-hmm.
by renovating.
Literally.
Yeah. That's funny. So tell me, you know, so you graduated, so you were the first graduating class at South Bronx Prep.
Yeah, yeah, very small school.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so tell me, you know, all right, so now moving on to high school.
Yeah.
And that's got to be like the 2000s,
Yeah, it
right?
was 2007. 2007, I
Oh
started high
my
school.
God. Wow. Okay. So 2007, 2007 hits. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, high school. What was that like? What was that? What was growing up?
Oh boy, high school. High school was interesting. As we all develop in high school, right?
Mm-hmm.
And go through our millions of changes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was actually really involved in different clubs and organizations when I
Mm-hmm.
was in high school. I used to do hip hop, so I was a rapper.
Oh,
I used to
okay.
do there was a
So
hip hop.
I gotta ask you,
Nah.
because you're a rapper. First rap you ever said? Can you remember it? Can you remember
Oh
the
my
first rap?
gosh, I can't remember the first one. I was
Okay.
probably in 7th grade when I did my first rap. And I
Wow.
remember this because I was contemplating whether or not I wanted to go to this information session for this hip hop group,
Mm-hmm.
like this hip hop after school program.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I don't want to go. I was like in the back of my earth science class. I don't know if I want to go. I don't know if I would be good at this. And I wrote like a couple lines and they rhymed pretty well. So I was like, okay, now I'm ready. Like I literally prepped myself. I was probably 11 or 12 at the time. And
Okay.
from there it just blew up. I was surrounded by like really dope teaching artists. That was my first time experiencing like an arts program.
Oh, nice.
Because going to a very small school and also not having a lot of resources because
Mm-hmm.
as a lot of people may know, even today there's not a lot of art programs, art resources for young people, in DOE, specifically in the Bronx. I think that that's something that
Definitely.
you know I absolutely had very minimal experience with in 2006, 2007. So
Mm-hmm.
to have this program come up out of nowhere, I was like, I don't know, maybe. And I did it. I was part of the collective of young artists in that space from my like 6th, 7th grade. Because I remember I told you that the school went from 6 all the way to 12. From like 7th grade to like when I graduated
Oh wow. Okay.
in 12th grade. So it
So it was
was
middle school, high school.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And it really became part of like who I was in school. Like I was that artsy person, you know. I did theater from there. I was in a couple plays. And then my visual artist, like just the visual artist in me, I guess, was ignited when I had the opportunity to do studio art when I was in high school. So I did a studio art class in 11th grade, and that was like it. I was like, oh, this is great. This is lit. I get to experiment. Like
Oh yeah.
yeah, and then I did that. So I did studio art in 11th grade, and then I did AP art in 12th grade. And
Wow.
that's where I really like was able to tap in and experiment with who I was as a creative, you know.
Who's your favorite rapper?
Oh boy, I have a couple. I think that I really enjoy New York rap. So I think like Joey Badass's style, it really resonates with me because it just is truly one of those like people that want to keep that New York rap style forever, you know. And he's not even that deep into the game, but
no.
he
Joey
even
Badass is amazing. He's
yeah,
dope.
yeah. Listen,
No. He's yeah. No, definitely. He carries the torch. Definitely does.
yeah, for sure,
He's nice.
for sure.
I like
Yeah.
his first album.
Mm-hmm.
His new stuff I haven't really got a chance to listen to, but his
Yeah.
first album like took me back to like the 90s.
Yeah, like I first listened to him while I was in college, and I think the song this his one of my favorite songs of his is Christ Conscious, and it's like it
Yeah, it's a
really
good one.
felt like that like deep, like I'm bopping my head in the club type of like rap. Like I'm not dancing to Joey Badass, but I'm bopping for sure. Like
okay. Yeah. So you so I'm curious, right? Because you definitely have an artsy spirit. But so how did you get into social work? Like what made you get into social work? Because and what you know, what made you decide that social work was your path or an additional path? I don't know.
I mean, it's literally one of those things that I just kind of like landed in the right the hands of the right guidance. And I had a lot of really good people that tapped into my potential. And I think that before I even saw what I could do, there was a lot of mentorship that came to me from like different teachers and you know, individuals that I've met throughout my journey. And I think, you know, going away for college was really important for me. And when I was applying to school, I was applying for like theater programs and like, you know, art programs. I did some business like interest and stuff like that. And then I landed on and I think it's one of those things that when you want to pursue art and people don't understand it, like you land on something that is more practical, especially you know, given my experience as a first generation college student, you know, my parents didn't really understand what it was that we were doing in the first place, and also they wanted to know that, you know, their daughter was doing something that was going to be safe, secure, and you know, they were going to be able to be all right after they finished their studies. So, you know, I tried to go as practical as I could. I think I landed on like business, and when I got to school, I think I enrolled in like a micro or a macroeconomics class, and I went to the first class and I sat down in that lecture hall. There was like probably 500 people there, and I was like, I cannot do this. This is not for me.
Wow.
And I met with my advisor, and we just kind of talked it through. He asked me what I wanted to do, what kind of impact I want to make, and I told him I want to work with people. I want to truly like you know, be able to find that passion with people, like whatever passion they have, and like help them get to their next goal. I always told him, or I tell everybody this, I said a perfect job for me is a job where I get to just put people on. If I could be a professional like putter honor, I don't know what that actually is.
A putter honor. Okay.
But if I could professionally just like find ways for people to be where they know they need to be, then That's all I really need. And my advisor at the time, he was like, why don't you try this intro to social work class? And I showed up, I was there, and I learned so much about like the different sectors in social work, right? We usually, your first idea of social work is usually like either working with kids or like working in like, settings like CPS, for example, or something like that. And or hospitals or something like that. And I didn't know that there was so much out there for what you could do within social work, social welfare, and social justice, So I definitely fell in love.
Okay, awesome. So how do you find balance with your social work and with art? Or do
Oh
you merge
boy.
them? Or do you merge them?
I mean, let me tell you something, Heck. I'm actually not even practicing in social work right now. Like I'm
okay,
working as a college advisor
okay.
for a community college. I mean,
Right.
I'm able to fuse a couple of different things. I told you I wear a
Mhm.
lot of hats, right?
Definitely,
Like
definitely. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no,
so
of course. No, I mean, when you're helping
so
our community, you have to. Definitely.
yeah,
I totally get it.
absolutely.
You're a counselor, you're the teacher,
Mhm.
you're advising,
Mhm.
and that's advising is on so many different levels because
Mhm.
you have to be able to connect with the person. So, I mean,
Mhm.
no, I can see it, and you have the
Yeah.
energy. So,
Thank you.
you definitely have the energy for it.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
okay, so you're right now so what is the college advising? How's that going for you? Like, what is that?
Yeah, so I actually serve as a college advisor for a community college, government community college. I work with first year college students
Okay.
and just help them navigate what higher education is, right? And for a lot of young people that I work with, like, especially in the community college setting, it's all about really trying to just figure out what's next, right?
Mhm.
I think especially right now it's a very important time to have somebody in your corner,
Right.
especially as we navigate all of these unprecedented experiences. We just came, I don't even want to say came off a pandemic because we're still kind of like maneuvering it, right?
Yeah, yeah, totally.
But for a lot of the young people that I work with, their entire high school experience was online on Zoom. Like,
Wow. Wow.
and now they're figuring out what it means to be a college student, right? So imagine your last
Mhm.
time being in a real classroom, for real, was like ninth grade, and then you're a college freshman, right?
Sheesh. Right. Yeah,
So
yeah. Uh-oh.
so I can definitely resonate with a lot of the stuff that they find, challenging, and they have barriers in. So,
Mhm.
that's why I really really love to continue to work with young people in that way, in that space.
Mhm.
It's a nice way to fuse like higher ed and social work for sure.
Awesome.
um so I actually got my license in social work this year. So I graduated in 2017 with my master's, and I never went to get my license. Always worked in higher ed, always worked as an advisor, and was able to kind of like be able to, work in the
Mhm.
outskirts of social work, but not
Right.
necessarily in it.
Okay.
And this year I took a leap of faith in February, and I took my exam and got my license. Um,
Awesome.
yeah,
Good for
yeah,
you.
yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's
So
dope. That's dope.
so I got my license, and I was like, all right, so now what? What do I do with this? And I always knew I wanted to bring art to my community. I always wanted to, be able to serve my community in a unique way, a way that's as special and sacred to me, but I didn't know what that looked like. Um, then I was on TikTok one day
Oh God.
and I stumbled across this collective of people, and this individual that was hosting paint and sits in Atlanta.
Mhm.
And he pretty much was doing similar concept to what we do for Pop Out and Paint.
Mhm.
But he pulled up to a park in Atlanta and just
Right.
invited the community to come and paint with him.
That's dope.
And I followed his journey, and I reached out. I said, so what's up? Can I do something like this in the Bronx?
Nah, that's dope.
And he said, hell yeah, you can do something like this in the Bronx. So a couple weeks after, I just organized my stuff. I literally took the paint that I had from my house, because I've dabbled in doing paint and sips, and doing like paint events, for my friends and for like their organizations and stuff. But I never did anything that I built on my own. So I just grabbed all my stuff, went to the local park, and I invited the community. And that started in April. And since April, we've had like 6, maybe 7 events so far.
Wow. That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, we still have the art.
Awesome. I love that.
No, it was really dope. It was different, and it was unlike the Bronx in a sense, because I mean, I would keep it real. Like, I grew up in the Bronx in like the late 90s. And when I say grew up, I was 18 when I officially lived in the Bronx. And I moved by the time I was 26. So I, like Jimmy's Bronx Cafe, and Step-ins, a lot of little spots, some that I won't even mention, because if I tell you, you'd be, well, you may not even know because you're young, but some spots you might, if you ask somebody about that spot, they'd be like, oh, that's right. Sorry. Somebody took me there. I didn't even know what it was, but it was always like there was a danger aspect to it. Like, somebody in there was a killer or something like that. But nothing ever. I mean, I've never been in any, except, well, no, I'm a liar, because I went to Roomba's one time, and yeah, Roomba's was a different experience. That was like near I want to say it was like, the only thing I could say it was nearby was like St. Barnabas Hospital. It wasn't really near St. Barnabas Hospital, but that was, but yeah, Roomba's was, yeah. So, but there was like a like there was some sort of danger aspect to it, but nothing never really happened. But just the, like, it was like, it could happen. And then we show up to the Bronx Brewery, and in my mind I'm like, okay, let's see what this is like. To be honest with you,
I hear you.
Let's see what this is like. And then it's a brewery, everybody's smiling, and I'm like, people are smiling. Okay, people are smiling. I don't know. I still don't trust it though. And then you pop out, hey, do you want to paint? And I'm like, how much do I gotta pay? No, it's free. Nothing's free. Nothing's free. What do I gotta give you? Right? You're like, no, you sit down here. There's a paint. You just pick it. And I'm like, I looked at my family like okay, And then it's funny, like, and then we had a great time, and then we leave the Bronx Brewery, and then we go to this spot that was just lit, but like too lit. Like, the music is blasting, and it's just like, and I'm like reading lips, like, how's your food? And I'm like, it's great. Sorry. Yeah, it was crazy. And I was like, okay, this is interesting. But and I appreciated that, because I felt like it's a level of positivity that the Bronx needs, right? Because the Bronx has gone through so much trauma in its history, and for someone like you, and I'm pretty sure, you could be leading a movement right now, and it's and honestly speaking, like, there's so much that trauma that goes on in the Bronx, where I remember people casually talking about getting shot, or like, and this is in the Bronx, and I'm just like, okay, like, and I mean, in our community it's kind of a thing, but it's only in places like the Bronx and Brooklyn is like second nature. It's like, oh yeah, this guy got shot the other day. It's not like, oh my God. It's like, oh yeah, he got shot. Well, what do we get to eat?
Yeah.
So,
I definitely hear that.
Yeah, it's I appreciate it, and it's
Thank
something
you.
that the Bronx needs. And uh, so my question is, so like now that you started like basically like in a park,
Mm-hmm.
and so how did you expand it? Like what was your how did
Yeah.
you go through that?
It's funny that you asked that because and before I go into the answer to that question, I just want to acknowledge your experience of the Bronx, and I'm just really really happy that we've been able to together and through other experience that you've had recently been able to start to shift that perspective, because
Mhm.
that's honestly the goal. The goal is to be able to, take that negative stigma that has been plastered onto the Bronx and really try to highlight that beauty, right? Because
Mhm.
I my experience of the Bronx is so vastly different from, that negativity that is usually uh connected to this environment and this community. And I think, through my work, I really want to work on making sure that that's something that we are able to move away from, because my experience of the Bronx is beautiful. Like I remember growing up and doing sidewalk chalk and playing double dutch and playing in the
Mhm.
bomba and like
Mhm.
being and just being kids, and like people would play football in the parking lot across the street, like and yeah, there was a lot going on, right? And that's definitely something that is very true, and I don't want to take away from that experience, because I know that that is something that's real and even real to this day for a lot of people in this community. And also, right, I don't want it to be something that's like taken away from that, but and also there's so much beauty and so much light in this
Mhm.
space.
Definitely.
So I definitely want to highlight that, and I'm glad that you shared that that's your experience, because that's exactly what we want to do in this season, is really, really, really showcase the amazing things that the Bronx community can bring. Um, so yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge that, because
No,
that really,
definitely.
that really stuck with me.
Mhm.
But to the question, to the answer to the question of how did I start to expand, and I think my answer has been because we started in April, end of April 2022,
Oh
and
wow, you just started.
yeah, like our first
Wow.
event was April 30th, and my next event was supposed to be May 15th or May 14th. I think it was like 2 weeks after,
Mhm.
and the weather was raining.
Yeah.
So I woke up that morning of the event and I started to DM Bronx businesses. And I was like, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is what I've got. Like, this is what we've been up to. Can we do it in your space because it's raining?
Mm.
I called a bunch of businesses. I was just trying to figure out some way that we could make this happen. And through that, I was able to have a connection with Vega Alta Sports Bar in Aspire on Girard. And that was my first, like, it wasn't indoor, but it was my
Mhm.
first business collaboration. It literally happened on accident.
Nice.
And I think that's the definition of serendipitous, right? Happy accident, right? So from there, I remember I told you I DM'd all these businesses and they didn't get
Mhm.
back to me right away.
No, no, it's fine.
but but that next week I had emails from a couple different spaces that were like, hey, I love what you're doing, let's make it happen in our space. And Bronx
Wow,
Brewery was one of them.
that's
So,
awesome.
I was able to meet with the Bronx Brewery in May, and I was able to connect with their owner, Damien, and he's awesome, by the way, because
Wow.
basically, like, the Bronx Brewery's mission right now is to be able to expand and highlight Bronx native, like Black Bronx or
Mhm.
people from the Bronx
Definitely,
voices,
definitely.
Bronx artists. Like, they have
Mhm.
so many beautiful murals all by like local artists,
Wow.
and it's really really dope what they're doing over there. So I was able to connect with them, and he was like, yeah, let's make it happen. Pick a Sunday and like come through. And from there, we started to build. And
Nice.
I did that event at the Bronx Brewery in June. I did another one with them in July.
Mhm.
And then we had our culminating event for the season. That was our Bronx in Color event, where I was able to invite some of the amazing artists that I met along the way, right, throughout
Mhm.
the journey, to come and showcase their art with the community. So that was my first like large scale like artist showcase. So I was able to curate that space for them,
So
for Bronx artists as well as Bronx small businesses that wanted to like vend their products with us. So it was really, really great experience.
that's dope. That is amazing. I mean, I would have thought you've been doing this for a while. No, honestly speaking, because it's such a great thing, and it adds. I mean, it sounds a little cliche, but it adds color. Like it was something
Mm,
that was something so totally out of the norm. And when I
mm-hmm.
got there, it added a great vibe, and people
Amazing.
were smiling, and people were together, um, and there was no violence. Right? There's nothing,
Mm-hmm.
nobody, no side eyeing, or at least I didn't see any.
Mm-hmm.
But I was too busy painting, so I don't know. But like,
Exactly. Everybody was too busy
yeah,
painting.
like it was great. It was a dope time, man. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel like with young people like you at the helm, it could definitely be a great revival for the Bronx that won't be attributed to gentrification. So,
We're trying to
yeah,
preserve the Bronx. Heck, we're trying to
yeah,
preserve what we got left.
no, definitely, definitely. I mean, we need to, because
Mm-hmm.
I mean, unfortunately, and it's weird to say, right, that all these places that are being redone through
Mm-hmm.
gentrification, um and it's like the question is always, well, why didn't you invest this money in us? Right? Like, why are you investing in people that
Mm-hmm.
don't even know the culture, don't even know the soul of the Bronx,
Mm-hmm.
and you want to bring in uh like a butter store, or I think that movie on Netflix, Vampires in the Bronx, I think it's called, or something to that
Oh,
nature,
I
where
think I saw that movie.
it
Yeah, that was
it if you really watch it, it
yeah.
low key talks about like
Mm-hmm.
gentrification in the Bronx, and even though it's based with vampires, it's still
Yeah.
talking about how you got these people moving in, and it's I thought it was a great message if
Mm-hmm.
you really pay attention to the movie and not just see it for like the extra theatrics or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but definitely, I think I applaud you. Keep doing
Thank
what you're
you.
doing.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's amazing. So you know tell the people how to find you, contact info, what you're doing. Let the people
Yes,
know.
yes. Yes, so you can definitely find me at Paint with Les on Instagram. We will be having a lot more events coming soon. Right now we're in a little bit of a hibernation period. I know we were just talking, and things are growing a little faster than we expected. So now I'm dialing back and trying to cover some of the logistics, right? So, you know,
Mhm.
figuring out a LLC, figuring out
Definitely.
space and all of that stuff, and
Mhm.
forming more formal partnerships. But please stay tuned. In the month of November, we're looking to have a couple events and hopefully something to close out the year as well.
Mhm.
So please follow us on Paint with Les on Instagram. And you can email me if you are looking to partner at paintwithles@gmail.com.
Here is the page, just so if you guys.
Awesome.
All right. Well, if you're listening, you're not going to see the page. So listen to what she actually said. So if you're watching
Thank
this,
you.
you're watching this on YouTube or Manhattan Neighborhood Network, this is the page that it is. Okay. All right. If you're listening, trust that I'm showing her page. But
Thank you.
yes, no, that's awesome. And definitely support as you know, as best you can. You don't necessarily have to support with money, you know, just show support, follow the
Yeah.
movement. If you're a local artist in the Bronx or in the five
Mhm.
boroughs and you're looking for an outlet, get in contact with Les.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, man, this was a great interview. Do you have any
Thank
last
you.
words, Les?
Yes, if you are looking to donate, we are fully free and for the love. All donations go right back to making the experience possible for our guests. And you could donate at on all platforms, Zelle, Venmo, Cash App. They're all Paint with Les. So any donations go right back to making it happen.
Awesome. That's great. That's awesome. So, if there's nothing else,
Thank
I
you.
have been Just.Hek. This has been Leslie Mejia, aka Paint with Les. And this has been another episode of Just Another Podcast. Thank you guys for joining us.
Thank
Have a
you.
great evening. Take care. Be safe out there. And we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you. Peace.